Welcome back to Sports Zone. I'm your host, Steven Lucero, and we're going to talk about the MLB and the Texas Rangers. For the Rangers, it has been a very up and down season so far, just 10 games in, but they lost the first and then won 4 in a row, and then lost 4 in a row, and then they won again. So joining me to talk about it, Miguel, Flores, and Ian Cropper. And guys, I feel like we got the entire Texas Rangers experience from the last couple years, all in the span of 10 games. And I don't know, it's been something that for the Rangers, I have mixed feelings. I know it's just 10 games in, but we've seen some highs, we've seen some lows. What have you seen from them so far, Miguel?
Yeah, 100%. Like you said, we're getting the full Rangers experience. Fighting for 500 is something we're getting a little too used to, but there's been ups, there's been downs. There's been a lot of inconsistency with the bats and with the closers, which has been the biggest issue for us, I think. But we're going to continue to see it. Hopefully the whole season isn't like this or else my cortisol will spike. But, you know, I don't want to fight for 500 all year. We're going to be in a competitive division this year, so we need to get better.
Yeah, absolutely. For Texas, currently starting at 5-5, you know, right there at 500. They have a game tonight. They're currently down 1-0 to the Mariners in the 4th inning. So lots of time left in this game. But, Ian, we've seen a lot from Texas over these first 10 games. And what has really stuck out to you the most?
Well, what stuck out to me is that we're kind of in a similar space that we were last year, which is kind of impressive given all the talent we lost in this offseason, saying goodbye to some of that World Series core. But we still have the same strengths and weaknesses. We're great at pitching. We're excellent at fielding. We can't hit to save our lives. And that has gotten especially frustrating because a team, even a mediocre team, shouldn't drop a full series to the Reds.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. You know, we saw them play pretty well against Philadelphia. They did really good in Baltimore. And I think the big thing is the bats were there. You know, maybe it's only when we're away from home or something like that. But you talked about Marcus Semien and Adolis Garcia being those World Series guys. That departed. In comes Brandon Nimmo. And that's really been an X factor for me. Brandon Nimmo currently batting in that leadoff spot. Best average on the team, well over 300 right now. He has brought somewhat of a spark. And, you know, even though the Rangers offense hasn't exactly found its consistency, especially at home, I think there have been some flashes. What do you think about that, Miguel?
Yeah, I agree. Brandon Nimmo, bringing him in. Look, Semien was a big part of that team that won the World Series, but that was 3 years ago. That has gone. He wasn't the same player last year. Adolis obviously wasn't the same player last year. So I think that it was good releases. As of right now, it's looking like we've kind of won that deal with getting Nimmo. He has been a solid hitter. Obviously, stats are not exactly where they are so early in the season, but he's going to be a big contributor. He's one of my stars of the season so far, so I'm happy with what we've seen from him.
Yeah, absolutely. And this was a very difficult offseason because, yes, you lost some of these players that were core pieces of that championship team. And it's always hard, I think, just to say goodbye to players like that. You know, Adolis Garcia and Marcus Semien mean so much to the Rangers and this fan base specifically. Yeah. But it's time, you know, to take that next step. And Brandon Nimmo has really been a great option for you. Adolis Garcia hasn't done a whole lot in Philly. I mean, I think he helped us with that drop. I'll say that. Shout out.
Indeed he did.
But, you know, I think for Texas, it's a matter of turning the page and trying to find something new. You know, they have some old pieces, especially on that pitching staff, as we talked about. But, you know, there's a whole lot of new as well. And, Ian, of these new players, who's stuck out to you?
Well, Nimmo is the obvious one, but for a less obvious one, how about Andrew McCutchen?
Oh, yeah,
who saw that coming? The 39-year-old outfielder, right after Pittsburgh told him to walk the plank, he's having a great start to this season. Like, if you look at our hitters, his batting average and on-base percentage are only behind Nimmo. He's 4th in RBI, and he's leading the team in slugging percentage and OBS. All this in far fewer at-bats than most of the starting rotation, only 17, while most of the team are in the 30s and 40s. Now, granted, he probably won't sustain this since right now he's at a .353 batting average. That would be his highest in 19 years in the majors. But still, it's an encouraging start to the season for a solid late off-season addition.
Yeah, what does that say? 19 years in the majors right there. I mean, Andrew McCutchen, I love Andrew McCutchen, guys. I mean, a 39-year-old, of just true veteran of this league. And I think what he brings to this team, of course, has been a bat so far. It's been impressive, but also just that leadership ability. I would like to see him play more over Jock Peterson, I'm not going to lie.
Indeed.
But he has played well when he's in there at DH. He even played right field a couple games ago. Yeah. I don't expect this, as you said, to be sustained across the entire season. But if he can be a DH for you that can really step in, make a difference, at least, you know, every other night, I think it's really a big deal for McCutchen. But looking at this team as a whole, you know, we talked a lot about some batters, and I want to talk about some of the pitching, especially what we saw last night. Looking at the game against Seattle, this was a game where you need to get back on track because you lost that series in sweeping fashion to Cincinnati. And as we look at some of our most impressive Rangers, McCutchen and Nimmo are the ones we mentioned. And Jake Berger's one more I'll give a shout out to real quick because he's been batting in the cleanup spot, and he had that highest average for actually a good little bit. He's been not quite as good in the last few games, but Berger has really been impressive for this team so far.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Berger's definitely played a solid role. He's kind of looking more like the guy that we acquired from Miami. Last year, he obviously didn't do so great, but now we're kind of seeing him take on that role of being a solid hitter. Hopefully, he can maintain it. A lot of these guys, they are so early. McCutchen, very early, so it's not going to sustain. But if they do somewhat good, if we could just somewhat get our bats hot, that would help us so much. And because our pitching is solid.
Yes.
We're in like low running games in this era of the MLB. You have to score. And if we're not able to put runs on the board, then we're not going to see any improvement for this team.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we saw last night. Another low-scoring game. We'll take a look at the highlights in just a moment. But the Rangers, needing to get a win, needing to get back on track. I liked what I saw from them at times in this game. Obviously, the bats, still not exactly what we want to see, but shout out pitching. It was really impressive. What did you see from them last night, Ian?
I mean, I fully agree. The pitching was great. Jacob deGrom still got it despite his age and injuries. He only gave up one home run, and that was to Big Dumper, so, that's kind of to be expected. But we did still have just enough production from our bats to win, particularly from Wyatt Langford, who's sadly been one of my most disappointing players of the season so far. He did have a nice hit that helped us win that game, but overall, this has just been a disappointing season for one of my favorite players on this team.
Yeah, I would preach patience with Wyatt Langford. I think it's a difficult one for him because I know baseball is a game of, fundamentals, but unfortunately at times it's a game of luck. And for him, I just feel like he's been a little bit unlucky. I know that's not going to show up on the stat sheet, but he's had some really hard hit balls, just a lot of high flyers that just keep turning into some flyouts. And, I think for him, he has shown that exit velocity. It's there. He has that pop and that power. I think it's just going to be a matter of him getting going. But, Miguel, looking at the game last night, what did you see from Texas?
Great pitching.
Yeah.
DeGrom, he's always – it's good to see him in the zone. Obviously, I've been reading some news that, maybe there's a little issue with his knee. Hopefully that's no problem.
He's had enough injuries.
I know, right?
Yeah, the last thing we need is another injury, but solid pitching. And we were able to see Jake Berger come through late and get that RBI double to help us take the lead and win the game. And it was awesome to get a win after that loss. Whenever you skid against the Reds, who they are second in the, I think, the NL Central, but you don't want to see a skid, especially after how hot we started away, of all things. And then you come home, you can't score runs, so it was good to kind of get back on track. I want to see more production from my hitters. The pitching needs to stay solid. Evaldi's not doing awful this game, so.
Yeah, that's a big part because Nathan Eovaldi, I think another player who has been perhaps a bit unlucky. I mean, he was really, especially looking at his last outing, he was throwing strikes. He just was getting hit off. There were just some kind of unfortunate ones that fell. And overall, it just got his pitch count up and ended up driving him out of that game pretty early. So not to excuse his performance in these first couple games, it's definitely not ideal, but he's another player that I think will get on track. Ian, though, looking at these starters as a whole, you have a pretty strong rotation so far. Looking at Jacob deGrom, Nathan Eovaldi, Mackenzie Gore, Jack Leiter, Kumar Rocker, and even Jake Latz. I like that list of names. Ian, what have you seen from the starters so far?
I mean, I've seen what we've needed to see. This is a group that can pitch at the highest level. And I do want to highlight Mackenzie Gore. That was another great offseason addition from Skip Schumacher. He's really making the team his own with moves like that and moving off from the World Series core.
Yeah, absolutely. Both Skip Schumacher and Chris Young, I think, really attacked this offseason with the mentality of using the core we have, but building on it and making those moves. And Mackenzie Gore, that trade, it was honestly one I wasn't thrilled about when they first made it. You gave up 5 prospects for that. And it was just a little bit difficult, but Mackenzie Gore has pitched really well so far. And you needed that lefty, that southpaw out of the starting lineup. And if he can continue to be what we've seen so far, I really think he could be a difference maker.
Yeah.
Speaking on pitching, though, I think the one concern that I have and that we've had over multiple seasons is the other part of the pitching, and that's the bullpen. The starters are great, and they are going to continue to be great, I think, as long as they can stay healthy. But the bullpen year after year is just a big question mark. Miguel, what have you seen from them so far?
Whenever they clip to the bullpen and you see Chris Martin and Robert Garcia warming up, I can't describe the sad expression on my face. I'm so disappointed every time I look at those two guys because they just can't clutch up, especially Chris Martin. He is the biggest – he spikes my cortisol. I hate to keep using that word, but he's ruining me. And year after year, the closers have not been good. The middle relievers are okay. Like, the bullpen isn't completely awful, but whenever you get down to those guys that you want to call to in the 8th, 9th inning that need to shut it down and secure the win. I hate to see those guys, and I just think that we need to make an acquisition to get a better closer.
Yeah.
Because seeing someone like Mason Miller come in for the Padres and just blast 103 by hitters, can we just please get that? But we don't have that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, unfortunately, I don't think you're going to get Mason Miller type, but this is a team and a roster that is built to be a playoff team. But I just think that more than anything is just what's lacking. You have Chris Martin, you have Robert Garcia. As you said, guys like Jacob Junis, I mean, have been solid in that middle relief, but you need a closer. And I begged them before the trade deadline, get a closer in the building. Because the Rangers, obviously, it's a long season to go. There's a whole lot more that we'll talk about. But a closing pitcher I just think that's the missing piece right now. So we'll continue to talk about it. But now we are going to talk about the NBA coming up next.